Welcome to Before First Gear, a series where I sit down with top racers to learn how they got started, honed their skills, and some of the unique challenges they faced along the way. Every racer has a story, and I look forward to hearing it. What else is there? What else should I say? How would you want yourself introduced?
I don't know. I don't really like introducing myself like that because I feel like a douchebag. But I don't know. Well, I won the 2019 and 2020 MotoAmerica Junior Cup championships, and I won the 2020 Twins Cup championship, and then I moved up to Super Sport, and in 2022 I finished second in the Super Sport championship. And this past season I did a partial season, so I didn't do a full season in the Twins Cup, and I finished third overall against guys who had actually done the whole season.
My guest today, Rocco Landers. He was the MotoAmerica Twins Cup champion. He was the MotoAmerica Junior champion, and he's very much an up-and-comer in the sport in general. Ideally, having a guy early on in his career that we get to talk to, we get to hear firsthand of how he's gotten to where he's at so far, how he learned some of this stuff, and obviously the guy's sort of a natural rider, but it's going to be pretty interesting to chat with him and understand some of the challenges he's facing, how he's gone through the curriculum of learning what he's learned to do. And now as a young racer, how you progress that next step of your career, which we get to see real time, which I think is pretty cool in general. So at that, Rocco, thank you so much for joining me today. Looking forward to hearing about this thing, man. So first of all, where are you sitting right now? Are you in a garage?
I'm in my room in La Crescenta, California.
How old are you right now?
I'm 18. I'll be 19 in 2 months.
So you're 19. When did you start riding? When's the first time you got on a motorcycle?
Well, it depends if you're asking when I rode or when I started racing. But the first time I got on a bike was when I was probably a baby. But my dad raced before I did.
And then first time you got onto like a racetrack or a little pocket rocket, something, a little motorcycle.
That would have been, I can't remember if I was almost 5 or I just turned 5, but that was a little Blata 40cc pocket bike that belonged to a friend of mine who unfortunately passed away a few years ago, Kenny Anderson. But we borrowed a bike from him. We went to this little track called Grange Motor Circuit, I think is what they called it. But it's out in Apple Valley, and my dad just took me out there for a day when I was 5 or just about to turn 5, and kind of was smitten with it right away.
And you said your dad was a racer?
For sure.
What was he doing? Yeah, what was his background?
Well, he got started late, unfortunately, and that's kind of how it goes. A lot of the time it's difficult, I feel like, for someone who does not race at all, for their parents to just kind of shove a 5-year-old kid into racing without the parents having any experience. It's pretty rare, as you said. But my dad was a club racer in the 90s, and he actually did a few rounds in the AMA Super Sport Championship back, I want to say it would have been the late 90s.
I feel like that's more than a club racer then. He was, he's not messing around then.
He got there. He raced Wera back when Wera was really big, and he raced WSMC. He, on top of that, he was also one of the first main coaches at the California Superbike School.
Okay.
And he raced a Cowie 600, I think, that belonged to the Superbike School at Mid-Ohio, Sonoma, and maybe another race.
Very cool.
I don't remember the exact year, but that was his racing. And unfortunately, it was very difficult for him to find the funds, and so he ended up having to kind of just start working normally. And I'm lucky enough to where he was still definitely super into it. When I was really little, he would sit me on his lap when I was 3 months old, 5 months old. Though apparently, this is what I'm told, the only thing that he could turn on the TV that would get me to sit still was Supercross or MotoGP.
Walk me through over the next few minutes the progression of the different steps that you took. Your dad was essentially a coach. I mean, he literally was a trained coach. Yeah,
exactly. So. He like Superbike School has been. I literally met Keith Code the day after I was born. It's kind of funny. I can probably find a picture of it. This is February 13th, 2005. That's my dad in the middle. That's Keith, his wife Judy, and that's me in the middle there.
That's awesome.
My dad's
That's
lap.
Awesome.
That would have been about a day after I was born. And, I mean, it was kind of just a natural progression. Like, we had the opportunity to go ride, and after a few months of regular little track time, going to just random kart tracks down in Southern California, I was able to actually go to a mini racing organization called, I believe it's called NC Mini GP, which was like Northern California Mini GP, and there was one called SC Mini GP, which was Southern California Mini GP. Basically, went out and won my race. Somehow I did, and that was with my buddy Brendan was in that race as well. And
So you're like little whatever 8-year-old Rocco at that point, dragging
I
a
was
knee
5.
on a little. Fuck's sake, man! Little 5-year-old Rocco dragging a knee on a little pocket rocket at that point.
And it's a funny story about when I dragged my knee for the first time. I would have been. I think it was my first day. Like I happened to be. I'd ridden bicycles a lot, and I'd ridden my PW50. Like a lot of riders start on motocross. I didn't. I had the PW50, but I rode it in skid pads. So I started on the street when I was little. But like my first time I dragged my knee, I was on the little pocket bike, and I have this visual of myself. It's totally untrue, but like as I was going through this little hairpin at the end of the front straight, I was this left-hander, and I had this visual. I just like I look like Nikki Hayden right now, and I was like that was the thought I had when I was like 5. But yeah, I mean, back then I still wore I wore my motocross gear because they didn't make leathers that were that small, but. Eventually, just I kept going, kept riding, kept getting slightly better. Just working. My dad busted his butt. He, spending every last dime we had to get me to the track, and it's a struggle at times. But the next year, I stayed in the small class, but I also ended up moving up to a little NSR 50, and I think I had a little mini KTM 50 supermoto that I couldn't even touch the ground on.
Okay.
So I would race that against like the whole crew was like Max Toth, who races in Moto2 European Championship now. There was Corey Ventura who's in MotoAmerica. Brandon and me were the main 4 who were kind of racing. And at that point, we were the ones we all grew up together racing. It just kept like snowballing. And in 2013, when I was 8 years old, I ended up going to Italy to race pocket bikes. Wow. So that would have been, it was pretty cool. I enjoyed it.
How'd that come about?
Well, over here, like I said, there was 3 or 4 of us who were pretty quick. We like, I'm not gonna say we were stomping anyone, but we were
the outliers. We were the outlier.
Yes. So over there were 20 of them, 25 of them, 30 of them. They were like the whole I went over there and my dad said I went out and I came in like a deer in headlights. I said I'd never seen so many people go so fast at once. So I ended up getting better. I think my best finish all year might have been 5th or 6th. I can't remember.
That's actually really interesting, right? So it's like, is that just a function that MotoGP is such a massive sport in Europe that you have such a wide range of kids that are wanting to be into this versus in the US, it's just a much smaller overall sport?
For sure. I mean, it's the same thing as kind of soccer, just on a smaller scale. Like over there, like an activity that people will do, it's ridiculous. They'll take their kids to the track and you just rent a little pocket bike and a helmet and they send them out and ride. And like there's 2 or 3 tracks at every when I was in Spain, same in Italy, like there were 3 or 4 kart tracks within an hour of the places that I would stay.
I mean, it's for them. It's like just, Little League, huh? I mean, it's like
exactly.
It's normalized. That's wild. And do you feel that, because I'm sure you know a lot of these guys still, do you think that you've caught up to them from a skill level standpoint? Everything they just developed a little earlier, and then you're catching up. And there's plenty of American riders that are blazingly quick.
Yeah, for sure. It's a weird deal because what happens is it's like y'all kind of you get to a certain point rather quickly. It's the same in flat track and the same money. You get to a certain point, but to find the last 2%, it just takes time. Sure. Over there, it's like what I experienced was like when I'm 7 or 8, I'm the same speed as everyone else. But they have those off seasons of training with their friends where they just ride constantly. I have to make it happen to where I can at least stay on top of it. And like the development just happens slightly slower over here, I feel like. And that's why you need to have a really good coach like the Superbike School. And I've had some pretty good people to work with. Just being over there was such a boost for me with my skill level in the sport. Just because I spent 2013 in Italy, I did 2016 in Italy, and then I went to Spain for 2017 and 2018. And it's
how
even
long
more so in Spain.
Were you like living there essentially?
In Italy, the first year, we kind of were there for like a few weeks, then we'd come back home. In 2016, I was actually there for extended periods of time, like month and a half. In Spain, it was between 1 and 3 months.
Okay.
that I was there. So I was probably collectively in Spain about a year, give or take.
That's awesome. Whereabouts were you in Spain?
Barcelona.
So
I was little. I didn't really enjoy it. I enjoyed the riding, but I didn't have the. I mean, I was 12. You're not gonna do much when you're 12.
yeah. Well, I mean, I got to ask the hard hitting questions, dude. I mean, if you were to go back now, I got to assume girls in Barcelona are much more into superbike riders than girls here in the States. I want to talk about how you actually got to that first seat in MotoAmerica. How does someone like you, obviously very talented, how do you get recognized? You go through some club level racing, you're up on 125 cc's into 600s. Then talk us through it.
Well, my first season in MotoAmerica, we were actually planning on going back to Europe, and the budget just did not fit going back to Europe. So we had the opportunity to race a Moto3 bike over there, but it just was dinero did not. We did not have the dinero.
Yeah.
But so my dad
you learned
had
some
a
Spanish
contact.
over there, huh?
CEO Tom. What? Nah, I speak a little bit of Spanish. It's not great. I don't get to practice much here. Yeah, but like my dad, so I'm sure a lot of people will have heard of his name is Jeremy Toy. He's a friend of my dad's. My dad raced with him when he was back in the day at Willow Springs. And Jeremy had actually supported Ashton Yates in the 2018 Junior Cup Championship on a Ninja 400, and the Ninja 400 at that point was a pretty new bike. And what ended up happening was I was doing my last few rounds over there. I ended up trying out for the Red Bull Rookies Cup, and I didn't make it in 2018. We went back, and Jeremy was like, yo, you want to test the 400? So we went to Chuckwalla. I tested the 400. Felt good. I raced a full off-season at Chuckwalla on the 400, and we ended up just basically shelving the Europe plan at that point just because it was just did not fit the budget. And we found some support to do Junior Cup. So my dad ended up building the team, bought the 400, built it, had some good contact, especially through Jeremy. Jeremy helped us out a lot. Things ended up molding together just perfect so that I could join Junior Cup on a perfectly competitive bike, and I had the skills that I'd gained in Spain. So that ended up being a rather successful season for me.
And what were you riding in Spain?
The class is now called Moto 4.
Esta prueba, la tercera de la temporada en la categoría de Moto 4, en esas 12 vueltas que hay que dar.
Which is now it's changed a little bit. It used to be now it's 150R, like Honda 150R motocross engines, and it's similar to an RS125 chassis, but it's specifically built for that class and for that engine.
Okay.
And I was on an 85 two-stroke at the time, so I was on a YZ. It was a YZ85 and what was called a Beyond chassis, and that was the championship was called GP85 at that point. But
because then you're going from a 125. I'm sure it was like a really nicely built race engine, but then going up to a 400.
Yeah, it was an 85.
Okay.
85 in like a 125 chassis.
Okay.
But yeah, that was that's it's difficult, but it's a completely different riding style. You have to ride the 400 so much. It's physically a lot harder to ride because you have to put a lot more effort into it. But the thing with the 125s and why you see the guys who have either currently or have done or are currently doing stuff on GP chassis, it's so much more refined. You have to be so much more accurate with everything that you do. And when you make it work, it's like the only street bike that I've ridden that is at least somewhat similar is the R6.
Okay.
The R6, like you have to ride it a very certain way, and when you ride it that way, it is so much better than almost anything. It's the same with the GP bikes.
And then so Junior Cup brings you up to your first MotoAmerica race.
Yes, that was the first MotoAmerica race.
And that's Junior Cup's a support series to.
Yes.
Is it MotoAmerica Super Sport? What are the classes?
Superbike is the premier class currently. Last year I raced Twins Cup again. Twins Cup was last year. Super Sport's where I want to be. I'm currently finalizing my deal for. I'm looking forward to getting out there.
How does that work when you're finalizing a deal? Like, I think the most interesting thing to me, kind of in talking to you, and I'm sure I'll think of a whole bunch of other stuff after we get off the phone here, is that the main difference between Europe versus the United States. So I feel like a lot of the ladder series that are in Europe, you're going to find much younger guys that are probably aiming for for a MotoGP seat down the road. Whereas I guess in the United States, this is still very much a nascent sport, right? It's still very much up and coming.
For sure. I mean, you can see the Red Bull Rookies. Like the Red Bull Rookies Cup was a series that I raced. I raced in that series as well in 2020. It was difficult because of COVID. They had to travel all over, and several countries actually had barred Americans from entry, which is ridiculous.
That's brutal. Yeah.
If you look at the entry list for those tryouts, and you look at the amount of kids that got tried out, I was the only American that year that got selected in 2019. There was like maybe 1 or 2 kids from Italy, 1 or 2 kids from France, maybe a Dutch kid, maybe a Japanese kid, and then 7 or 8 Spanish kids.
Okay.
And then the series is almost a quarter to a third Spanish, depending on the year.
Yeah. Wow. And what does that entail running in that series? It's a full sponsorship of like, what does it mean? What does that series mean?
Well, you basically file an application, and there's like, I think it's something like 10,000 people apply every year, and then 130 out of that like 10,000 get selected. I don't really. Maybe 10,000 is just completely wrong. It's several. I was
Sounds
told
high.
It was 10,000.
Sounds high.
I don't remember how many people like act. Maybe it's not 10. I can't remember.
Whatever
exactly.
it is.
It could have been either
a lot of
1,000,
people
1,200,
apply,
something.
and then 130 are
Yes.
selected.
130 get to come try out, and then 10 are selected.
And
10 between 10 and 12.
And you were selected to try out, or you were one of the 10?
I was selected to try out in 2018 and 2019, and then in 2019 I was selected to race in it. Yeah, racing the Red Bull Rookies Cup on one of the Moto3 bikes that they have, and unfortunately, like I said, COVID kind of screwed me.
Yeah,
that was an awesome opportunity, and it was tons of fun, and I was able to meet a lot of good people and see a lot of my friends from whenever I was racing over there full time.
Yeah, because that's run all throughout Europe.
Yeah, unfortunately, I actually only went to Austria because the other rounds were either canceled because of COVID or I got barred from countries because of the COVID laws.
Man, I'm sorry. Yeah, that's tough. Yeah, no, that's tough. That's really tough.
I enjoyed it while it lasted, though.
Do you think you'd have a shot, or at this point, it doesn't make sense?
At this point, I'm too old.
Okay.
At that point, I was too tall. Anyways, I was the tallest guy by a few inches, and I was the
how tall are you?
I'm 5'10".
What's the average motorcycle racer? 5'7"?
Over there, average racer is probably between 5'6" and 5'7", but over there in that series, the average height was around 5'2", and I was 5'9".
So I'm 6'1". That's why I'm slow on a bike, I guess.
I don't know.
It all makes sense now.
Valentino Rossi was 6'1". when he was raised, he's 6'1".
Is he really? I thought he was a tiny little.
Maybe he's 5. Maybe I'm thinking he's between 5'11" and 6'1".
I'm sure.
Danilo Petrucci is 6'1" or 6'2", I think.
Wow. Okay.
Hang on.
Yeah,
I can't remember. Simoncelli was something. I can't remember. So, those guys are all between like 5'11" and like 6 foot to 6'1", but that average weight was like maybe 100 pounds tops, and I was like 140 pounds.
Oh wow! Yeah,
and like I was the heaviest guy by 5 kilograms, which is like over 10 pounds, the heaviest guy possible. And that was because I was a head taller than anyone.
Rocco, looking into the 2024 season, you mentioned earlier that you had a friend unfortunately pass away.
It's still very rare.
Yeah. No, it's very rare. But I think we romanticize this sport a lot, and the reason we romanticize is because it's very dangerous. So it's it's humbling sometimes to remember. They call the MotoGP guys they're gladiators, man. So it's pretty gnarly what you guys do.
It's not as gnarly as maybe you would think. Like most of the time when someone crashes, whenever people ask me what I do, I usually will just say, like, if I'm in like you ever get into a conversation with someone like an airport or something, so I usually just say I work for a race team, because it's like the first question out of their mouths 90% of the time is, have you ever crashed? And I'm like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, a million times. I mean, it just happens. Like I've been injured twice, and I've probably crashed over 1,000 times.
Your mom, is she hate this stuff?
No, she's the opposite. She likes it. She gets nervous during the races, but mostly because she thinks I'm just not going to do well.
Oh, so it's not even a danger thing. It's just.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
She's like, whenever there's a race, like you can probably find clips online. I'll send you some links. You just start freaking out on the race.
Yeah, please do. I'll put them up here. Yeah.
Sometimes I like to just send her like videos of me riding and then sneak a crash in there. Just so I can screw with her.
I crashed once on a track, and my dad. I call my dad at NJMP, and
NJMP is sick. I love that place.
Yeah, second to last turn. I think it's turn 10. It's this tight left the tight
The long
left-hander,
left.
Thunderbolt. Yeah. And I did a little low side there. I had like a little R6 race bike for like just a track day bike for about 5 years. Low side, and called my dad. He said, "All right, we're just going to not tell your mom about this." So I think to this day, until she hears maybe this interview, she won't know about it. So I guess right now it's a major inflection point in your career, right? Because all of a sudden you're starting to hit the point where you're becoming a professional rider. You're starting to get these deals. You've really thrown, and your family as well, everything into this, that down the road, your goal is to be a professional motorcycle racer. Your goal is to race in MotoAmerica. Do you have sights anywhere else?
Yeah,
Do you want to look into
sure.
Europe?
No,
Do you want to look?
MotoAmerica is a stepping point. In the current situation, it can get a little bit difficult. But my goal's always been GP. At this point, I'd be stoked to go to World Superbike. Right now, I'm just focused on this year, and then at the end of the year, I'll be focused on next year. So,
what's next, kind of as you look towards 2024?
This next season, it's looking like I'll sign with Vance and Hines Motorsports team on a Harley Davidson Road Glide in the Baggers series, which is a new series, but it's kind of exploded.
That's
over
the
the
coolest
past
series, by the way,
seasons.
man. Can you just explain a little bit more about what that is? That series, the Baggers series.
It's essentially when you take like a Harley or an Indian and you take every single part off of it and then replace it with like a super high performance version of that part, and then take a bunch of parts off of it and then make the bike way lighter than it comes, and then send a bunch of goons out on, I don't know, goons. We're all pushing hard, but it's they're gnarly. They have so much torque. They're so fast. It's just the amount of torque that they make is just bonkers. Like you come out of a corner, like I was testing and I just motored by an R1 on the front straight. It was just like, bro, this is the fastest bike I've ridden in my life. I'm just looking forward. It's rather than having the pressure of figuring out a deal, figuring out how we're gonna have funding, figuring all that other stuff out. I am just ready to go race right now. I'm able to train. I'm able to put 100% of my effort into just making myself as best as I can be on track and just working.
What are you doing from a training standpoint? Cardio? Do you do core? Do you do
almost 100% cardio? I tend to build muscle pretty easily, so along with that I gain weight pretty easily. So I want to keep myself light. So I'd say my training consists of just going to the track, and then I probably do about, like, my physical training is probably about 95% running.
What do you do, like a 5K?
Well, it depends. Sometimes I do short ones. Long runs are the best. They do, like,
because your heart rate spikes quite a bit during a race, right? So it's kind of interval training in a way.
I'm not really. You have to just keep yourself calm. It's not like motocross. Like motocross, your heart rate's gonna be at about 190 beats per minute the entire race.
Wow. Okay.
Depends on who. In road racing, it's more so psychosomatic if your heart rate's going super crazy, because you shouldn't really be physically pushing that hard. Like, yes, you can, and in a qualifying lap you will at times, but there's something wrong if you're just coming off the track just exhausted and dread, like, unless you're in an endurance race.
Rocco, thank you so much, man. Really appreciate you doing this. Really wishing you the best in the 2024 season and then beyond, and stoked to actually watch you progress in the next few years, man.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. It's really fun talking to you.
Right on, man.